What's going on? Appreciate you clicking on the video. In this one, I'm going to talk about the NBA Finals as we do know the matchup finally. So, break down the each team's path, talk about some of the narratives between the duos in this matchup, which I do think is very interesting, and kind of get you set for it. Obviously, I'm not going to make a prediction or anything because we're still 6-7 days away. So that'll be later on, closer to the finals. But let's go ahead, get into the topics. Also, make sure you leave a comment. Would love to hear from you on anything I do touch on in this video. So let's get into it. So looking at the NBA Finals, we have the Celtics, who are the 1 seed in the East, versus the 5 seed in the West, Dallas Mavericks. So we'll start with the number 5 seed in the West. Dallas went through the Clippers in the first round. And, the Clippers probably had the 3 biggest names with Kawhi, Paul George, James Harden. That group, a lot of people were interested to see how they could do in these playoffs. Well, Luka and Kyrie and those guys took care of them. And it was entertaining at times, but I do think the better team came out on top in that one. Obviously, they beat them, so they should be the better team. Now, the second round, they took on the top seed in the West in the Oklahoma City Thunder. And you kind of got the feeling that the Thunder probably weren't necessarily ready for the stage. So Dallas moves on and beats them. And then the Western Conference Finals, which just ended yesterday, you saw Luka and Kyrie go up against Anthony Edwards, who became kind of the talk of the playoffs because of them beating Denver. But Luka and Kyrie were too much for that number one defense, where they pick and rolled them to death. Luka shot really well from the outside. Like, he had some dominant games in that series. Kyrie as his number 2, filled in when needed. They got the job done. They move on to the NBA Finals. Celtics, first round, face the Heat culture, the team that took them out the year before in a 7th game in the Eastern Conference Finals. No Jimmy Butler. Celtics handled them pretty easily. Even though I do think with Jimmy Butler, they still win that series, but neither here nor there. Second round, they get Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and those guys in Cleveland. Once again, the Celtics do lose the game 2, which they did against the Heat in the first round. Bounce back from that, take 3 straight, and kind of end that series as well pretty easily. Then they face the Pacers, who had a surprising run to the Eastern Conference Finals. They do sweep the Pacers, but it was very entertaining, very close games, other than game 2, ironically, in that series where Celtics handled the Pacers, but every other game, very close. Celtics get back to the NBA Finals, where obviously they were a few years ago, lost to the Warriors. So now they have another opportunity against, like I said, Luka, first opportunity. So obviously his first chance to get an NBA title under his belt. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting matchup between, 2 coaches that, well, Jason Kidd has more of a pedigree as a coach. Obviously, he's been in a few spots. Joe Mazzulla, I feel like, came into his own in this playoff run, actually this season, you could say. But yeah, it's a battle of the duos, which I feel like that's the era we're kind of in. Duos dominating, having good pieces around them, and that kind of gets you. That's where you kind of find success in today's NBA. So the finals get underway, just to let you know, June 6th, which is, next Thursday. So like I said, we have some days to wait. Lots going to go on in between that, which I'll touch on here in a second. But it's far enough away where you obviously are in great anticipation for it. But grand scheme of things, it'll be here in no time. I can't wait. Hopefully you can't either. So this is the schedule. Like I said, Thursday, June 6th, you have game 1, which would be in Boston. Obviously, 1 and 2 are in Boston. Then the Sunday will be game 2. Then you got Wednesday for game 3, series shifting to Dallas. Game 4 would be Friday, the 14th. Then travel day, so game 5 would be 17th, and then so on, so on, and so on. 20th and 23rd, if we do go 7 games. So you can expect on the channel for probably get watch alongs for all of them. There might be a game I may not be able to do, but I'll do as many as I can. I mean, it's the NBA Finals, so I will do all 7 if needed. At least try to. But there's your schedule for the NBA Finals. So once it does start, you expect a game, couple of days off, game, couple of days off. They like to spread it out, not only for to control the sports scene for a little bit longer. It does ensure that the couple of days off, players can rest a little bit more. So hopefully the basketball on the court's a little bit better. So that should benefit the fans watching. But yeah, we're almost there. Almost there. So let's start with Luka and Kyrie. So talking about kind of the talking heads and what the narratives that are being created. For Luka, a lot of them are looking at this as an opportunity for him to become the face of the league if he were to get his ring at the age, 24? Because as I've talked about before, that's been kind of like the behind the scenes narrative with these NBA playoffs as who's going to be the next face of the league. LeBron's older, Curry older, Durant, those guys. So the next younger face. I will say, trying to see who said it. Might have been Jason Williams, white chocolate. He kind of had a good point. He was like, why do we have to single out one face? Why couldn't there just be faces of the league? Which I do think if you kind of look at it that way, it sheds a light on the like young talent that are in the league and how much that the league is like set up in a really good place that once a lot of the bigger, older names are gone, a lot of these younger guys have positioned themselves to take the reins and really jump into that spotlight. So maybe it isn't just one guy, but a lot of people are looking at this as a chance for Luka to cement his name as the guy in the league. And look, we know Luka's game. He's not the quickest, not the most athletic, but he knows his spots. He knows how to play off of screens. He gets his shots off, and he's a shot maker. So you can't take anything away from his game at all. He's that guy, As pure scorer, he's one of the best in the league right now. Now for Kyrie, what does this series mean for him? I mean, a lot of the talk has been around his legacy, kind of the way he's viewed around the league. And yeah, a series win for him would be pretty good because Kyrie, I feel like he would even have to look at it himself and be in a situation where this could be his most successful season post LeBron, because we know that those two were together early on, had some success. Kyrie moved away from LeBron. For a lot of fans, that was seen as a, not the smartest move for him to make for his career, but he did it. Had some stops in between that Cleveland stop and where he is in Dallas now, where didn't go well. Brooklyn, disaster. Boston wasn't great, but now He's with Luka. The two of them seem like they're playing really well off of each other. I mean, I know some some talk has been about like the Celtics and their offense being a lot of ISO and one-on-one. Dallas does do that a lot as well. And that's because both of these guys with the ball in their hand are able to create for themselves, which I've never understood the talk about too much ISO or too much this. If it works for your team and your team's makeup, why should the team go away from it, right? So you will see at times Luka dominating the basketball, scoring. Then you'll probably see a moment where Luka kind of goes to the bench. Kyrie takes over as the premier ball handler and then creating and everything like that. So they seem to fit with each other. A lot of people questioned how this pairing would work out when they first were formed. And I think a lot of that had to do with Kyrie and the perception of Kyrie within the NBA circles, because he was seen as a guy who wasn't necessarily the easiest teammate to share a locker room with. And not all of that obviously was on the court. A lot of that was stuff that were just circumstances on the outside of the NBA game that Kyrie got involved with, which led to a lot of fans, however they felt about him. Now, as a Celtics fan, obviously the Kyrie situation in Boston did not work out. I thought when they made that move, it made sense. I understood it, especially for the fact that Kyrie wanted to be a leader on a team. And at that time, you had a really young Jaylen Brown and an even younger Jason Tatum. So I got the reason why Danny Ainge did it. Obviously, he had to kind of sacrifice Isaiah Thomas for it, which that was the toughest part. But, it didn't work out there. He wanted to be the leader when he was first there. Then he wanted out and wanted to join Kevin Durant. That's kind of the era we're in. So more power to him. So it's going to be an interesting relationship, just to let you know, between Kyrie and Celtics fans. It's still choppy waters between those two. So expect to hear some anti-Kyrie chants. Kyrie, we'll see how he reacts. When he was in Brooklyn with KD, it got to him after game one. Early in game one, it didn't bother him when Brooklyn was winning. As the game started slipping away from him, it seemed like the crowd got more and more into his head and took him out of the game, ultimately taking him out of the series, which led to the Celtics sweeping them. It does seem that Kyrie is a different player at this point in his career. So that is something to watch games 1 and 2, the dynamic between Kyrie and that Celtics crowd. But no denying that they are one of the top duos of the West, which is why they've made it through the Western Conference playoffs. I know Stan Van Gundy calls these two I feel like he's clarified it a couple of times. I guess the best scoring duo in NBA history. Some people obviously brought up Steph and Clay. I know Isaiah Thomas talked about himself and Joe Dumars, which I feel like that duo was probably a more complete duo than this one. But then, once again, Van Gundy was just talking about offensively, which, once again, not to knock Isaiah Thomas, because Isaiah Thomas was a very skilled offensive player. Reason why a lot of people compare Kyrie Irving to Isaiah Thomas. But, yeah, I don't know if Joe Dumars is necessarily on Luka's level. But, yeah, so that's kind of the narratives behind Dallas going into this series. So now let's take a look at the Celtics. Tatum and Brown. I would say the coverage of these two hasn't been as probably upbeat as the Luka Kyrie narratives, because it's almost like every day they're pulling at a different straw to see what narrative kind of sticks. And this goes back several years with these two. There's been a narrative for a while that these two cannot coexist. And now, with the fact that they've made it back to the finals, it's almost like they're trying to create that narrative again. Because we've gone from Tatum not celebrating Jaylen Brown's Eastern Conference Finals MVP as much as his other teammates, which I don't need to get too deep into that, but the two of them have talked about the growth of their relationship. So, you can believe that if you want. Then it's the Brown is now the better of the two, even though, was it last year, a lot of these NBA people were clowning Jaylen Brown for that game 7 against the Heat, where he really struggled once Tatum rolled his ankle 3 seconds into the game. And mind you, Tatum still tried playing, stuck it through. They got blown out. Tatum was out there, barely moving, but trying to do as much as he could. Obviously, the Heat put a lot of their defensive focus on Jaylen Brown. He struggled. I get that. But now it's to the point where they're saying Jaylen Brown's better than Jason Tatum, obviously to try to create some rift between the two. Then it was that moment with Stephen A. talking about how Jaylen Brown's not marketable, as some source told him. But if you look at Jaylen Brown, he's an interesting person, wildly intelligent, to the point that some scouts didn't think he actually liked basketball when he was coming out of college. They thought he had too many outside interests. I think he had like a standing internship at NASA waiting for him or something like that. So he seems like a guy that the league should be able to market, but according to sources, he's not marketable. I do think it's because I guess he's seen it's kind of boring. Tatum, another guy that, even though he has a few commercials, it just seems like, at least to the NBA media, he's not seen in a certain level that I feel like he should be. I think a lot of that's because he's kind of boring. He plays. A lot of it talks about his mom, his son. That's about it. You don't hear about these two getting in trouble with the law or anything like that. The only news you really see, Tatum with his son, Brown when he's talking about like social issues and stuff like that. So for whatever reason, because they're back in the finals, NBA media is trying to make it seem like they don't like each other and also all this kind of stuff. So what is at stake for these two? I think with the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, if they then turn around and win the finals, I do think it might put Jaylen Brown into the status of superstar. I don't think he's obviously seen as that because he missed All NBA this past season. Well, this season, I can't say this past season. This season, he got on it last year where, with the money ties, with contract and everything, it seemed like more people were more invested in putting him on All NBA last year to help him get the money. Then he got the contract, and people were up in arms about it that he got that much money. Look at his season. Look at these playoffs. He's lived up to it so far. Tatum's going to get his money, I guess, in the offseason. And, that's going to be a talking point over the summer for sure. I'm letting you know that. But, yeah, for Jaylen Brown, he probably elevates to probably closer to steal from Nick Wright, club superstar. Maybe he becomes a guy who's in the line waiting for Nick Wright's next iteration of that. Now for Tatum, what do these finals mean? And like I said, the way the NBA is talking about it, it seems like this is everything for Jason Tatum. We've heard Perkins basically say that he needs Jason Tatum to win finals MVP. They obviously have to win the finals. And that's the only way he would almost I guess, congratulate Tatum. So mind you, if they win the finals, and let's say Jaylen Brown wins finals MVP, they're going to talk about how Brown is just better, which is wild to think about. Because, yes, I could say in terms of aggression and slashing, getting to the hoop, Brown's probably better. But all around, you'd probably say Tatum's better. Because both of them are players on both sides of the ball. They both play defense. They both can score offensively. I do think Jason Tatum is more advanced as a playmaker than Jaylen Brown is right now, which, because of that, Tatum has taken a step back in terms of scoring while upping his assists and rebounds. But like I said, hear the NBA media talk about it, not getting a lot of credit for that. So this is an interesting series, not only because of the great players I've highlighted here with Luka, Kyrie, Tatum, and Brown, but for the narratives that are like underlying in this series, especially on the Celtics end, because to a lot of NBA people, they had a great season. They've had great seasons in the past. They've been to the conference finals in the past, been to the finals before. Now they have to get it done. Whereas, like, if you look at Luka, this is his first opportunity at the finals. If the Mavs were to lose, nobody in the NBA media is going to come down on Luka. I'll tell you that, unless he has like 4 straight games where he is just atrocious on the court, bricking shots and everything like that, looking like the spotlight's too bright, which I heavily doubt, since Luka's been playing professional ball since he was like 13 years old. And he's playing for like Real Madrid, and like that's big boy international basketball. So I have no doubt that Luka will show up. Like I said, for Kyrie, it's a little more rehab to his image. And then for these two right here, kind of a chance at some respect, which is kind of weird to say when Tatum's been all NBA 3 straight years. I mean, all NBA first team, I should say, 3 straight years. And Jaylen Brown made it all NBA last year. Should have been on this year. I'm saying that. He should have been on there over Booker or Halliburton. Take your choice. I don't care. One of them should have been off for Jaylen Brown. And that's at least one of those two should have been off for Jaylen Brown. But yeah. So, like I said, I don't have a prediction because I'm going to save that for another video as we get closer to next Thursday. I mean, shouldn't stop you. So in the comment section, if you want to put down there, who do you have winning this series, how many games, and who will be finals MVP? Let me know down in the comment section. Like I said, I'll do that in the next video where I talk about the finals, probably like Wednesday or so, maybe even Thursday, day of. But appreciate you tuning in. A little bit of a longer video, but it's the NBA Finals, right? You see the commercial with Dwayne Wade. It's the finals. So I had to go a little bit of a longer one with more, I guess, topics than normal. So appreciate you tuning in, especially if you made it all the way through. Love it. But yeah, you know what you need to do. If you liked it, hit the like button, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. But yeah. So I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. God bless. And I'll catch you later. All right.